If you're looking for ways to get more leads for your cold email campaigns, you're in the right video. I'm going to break down all of the strategies we use internally to get millions of leads for our own company and for our clients. And I'm going to show you all of the principles of lead generation that makes your entire process smoother, much better, and just increase the likelihood of you being able to fill your pipeline with qualified appointments. Now, for some context, we're a cold email agency that helps 7- and 8-figure other agencies book more appointments through cold email. We've been doing so for a few years already, and we booked over 3,000 appointments and counting. So let's jump in. I'll share my screen and show you what are the strategies that we use at this moment. So to get started, I'll just break down lead generation in 4 stages. We always want to follow these 4 stages. We never want to skip any of them. And it's always going to be the same. Number 1 is going to be finding the companies. So defining the criteria. What is a good company that you want to work with? What is a good company that you want in your email list? And for that, I'm going to break down in a second. But we usually find companies as the beginning stage of a lead generation process, and then we go to getting the contacts. So we define the criteria of the companies we want. Now we're going to define who are the people inside those companies that we want to talk to. So in this process, we are defining the persona. So that would be the exact title that we want to talk to. And we are getting their contacts, their email or their phone number in case you're doing cold calls. So that is stage number 2. Stage number 3 is validating the contacts, making sure that all of the information that we have is actually accurate and we can actually follow through with this information. On cold email, this would be specifically testing if the email actually exists and if we can actually reach it. So from there, we're going to go into the cleaning phase, which is making sure that the entire data that we have on this person and on this company is relevant, is real, and it's properly formatted to just ensure that when we are sending it in a cold email, let's say as a merge field, it looks good, it feels good, it doesn't give away that you have an automation going on. Now that we understand those 4 stages, we are able to jump in and understand how to, what is the tech stack for every single one of these stages, starting with finding companies. The tech stack for finding companies varies depending on the industry that you're trying to target. For example, if you're in the e-commerce industry and you want to get more e-commerce brands, a fantastic tool to help you find those companies would be StoreLeads. So in case you're in e-commerce, there is your tool. But if you're trying to find all sorts of companies, your best bet would be something like a database, and that could be Apollo. Even though Apollo is not a fantastic tool in terms of filtering companies, it is a very good database and is going to contain a lot of companies. So let's just recap. Tool number 1 was StoreLeads. Second is going to be Apollo, which is a database. You can also get leads from places like LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So you're able to just go ahead, apply all of the filters for the companies that you want. And you're even able to do part of step 2, which is get contacts. I'm going to tell you more about that in a second. But you can use Sales Navigator to define the companies that you want to target. You can do that through Boolean searches or simply by using their internal search. So that would be the third one. The fourth one would be search engines. You can always go to Google or DuckDuckGo and search for the companies that you want to work with. A very simple way to do this, let's say you're targeting coaches, would be that you put on Google or DuckDuckGo site, and then you define that to be Instagram, and then you put the keyword coach in between quotation marks, and you say, let's say if you want like coaches that have more than 10K Instagram followers, you would then go ahead and put between quotation marks once again, ... K followers. And that would define that you want all of the accounts that are being shown to you in Google to have this amount of followers, right? And that they are on Instagram. So that way you can scrape the website that is contained on the snippet, right? So how do you even scrape something like Google or DuckDuckGo? You can use a scraping tool such as Instant Data Scraper, and Instant Data Scraper is able to crawl through the pages of Google or DuckDuckGo and just get all of the information out and put it in a spreadsheet fashion. From there, all you're able to do is just use a formula. You can use ChatGPT to help you build the formula and just get the websites and domains out of the snippets. So that would be how you would leverage the search engines to get companies. That's one example. You can also scrape Linktree. You can also scrape just keywords overall out of Google, and then you just remove all of the socials. So you put like minus or remove, and then you put Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and so forth. Now, the next one, if you're doing local lead generation, you could be considering a tool called D7 Lead Finder or Phantom Buster, which I'm going to actually add to this list here. So Phantom Buster. which is a fantastic way to scrape Google Maps and find companies that serve locally, that are not just web. And then the last one would be job boards. You're always able to go to, let's say, Upwork or Indeed or LinkedIn Jobs and just scrape the companies that are looking to hire for a specific role. And that is a fantastic way to get started in your campaigns because you already have the intent in case you're filtering for roles that are similar to what you're trying to sell. For instance, if you help companies with Facebook ads and you search for companies hiring media buyers, you're then able to send them an email or a DM mentioning that you saw that they were looking for a role that's very similar to what you offer, right? So that is how you get the companies. You usually start with one of these tools and you move on to the next part, which would be getting the contacts. For getting contacts, we usually recommend a strategy that's called the waterfall enrichment. Waterfall enrichment is nothing more than combining tools to make sure you get the most amount of contacts out of every single list. And this is pretty much to say that we start, let's say, with a cheap tool and try to get as many contacts as possible. Then we go to the next tool and we try to get as many contacts as possible that we were not able to find from the first tool. Then go into a third tool and keep on doing it in that fashion. So if you were to put this in a real example, it would look something like this. We start in Apollo, which is a fantastic database. We get all of the contacts we could possibly get for the domains that we found in the previous stage. And from there, let me take all of the contacts that we found in Apollo. We run it through Million Verifier, which is going to be, I'm already giving you a snippet of stage number 3, which is the validation. But we run it through Million Verifier or NeverBounce or tools that do verification for you. And we only keep the valid ones. We remove everything else, plug it back in a spreadsheet, and then we filter all of the domains from stage 1 that we were not able to find in Apollo and Million Verifier. And we're going to take those domains and we're going to put it in the next tool. So let's say Find Email. So we now run it through Find Email. We take all of the contacts found from Find Email, run it through Million Verifier and NeverBounce once again. Then we take everyone that we couldn't find a contact for, every domain we couldn't find a contact for from Apollo and from Find Email, and we run into a third tool, let's say Seamless. And we keep on doing so until we just reach all of the tools. Now, this is a very good strategy if you have a small TAM, which would be a total addressable market. In that case, you want to get as many contacts as possible. And this is a fantastic way of getting prospects. Now, what happens when you're going just broad and you're targeting the entire market, let's say you don't have many filters, is that you can just use one tool. You don't need to use all of them in combination. You can just go ahead with Apollo, get as many contacts as possible, and keep campaigns on running. And then you just try different industries, different criteria for getting more companies, and so forth. So I just want to define what is a waterfall enrichment because we use it quite often in our own scraping. But if you're just starting out and you want to keep one, or if you have a big market and you do not worry about not getting enough leads, you can just stick to one of these tools. So once again, the tech stack for getting contacts would be Apollo, Find Email, Seamless, ZoomInfo, and so forth. From here, I already gave you a snippet that we want to validate the contacts. The way we do this is we can use tools such as Million Verifier, NeverBounce, and Use Bouncer. Now, these tools, what they do is they check what is the stage that the email is in. And that would be, is it a valid stage, meaning they have MX records installed and they are a real email address. Their SMTP is working and whatnot. The email is responsible. So that is a valid email. Whenever we find valid emails, we can just put them aside. Those are the ones that we're going to actually launch in our campaign. We don't need to do any further steps on them. Now, there is also 2 other stages that your leads could be in, or that your emails could be in. And those are, number 1, catch-all, and number 2, invalid. Catch-alls are pretty much email accounts that were unverifiable. You don't know if they can actually land or not. And for that, you can use a tool such as Scrubby that is able to send an email to those accounts and see if they're receiving those emails and not bouncing, meaning they are not sending an email back saying that like the account is invalid and the user is just not working anymore. So that is catch-alls, and that is stage number 2, unverifiable. You can run those through Scrubby. Once you run them through Scrubby, you take all of the valids from there and then put them in the list with the valid leads that you had before and get ready for the cleaning phase. Now, there is also a third stage of validation, which is invalid. Invalid is pretty much, hey, this email does not exist, it's not responding to any of our tasks, or we were able to identify before that this is a lead that bounced. This is an email that bounced in our own system. So yeah, we use those 3 tools. Just to recap once again: Million Verifier, NeverBounce, Use Bouncer, you choose one of them. And then if you want to validate catch-alls, use Scrubby. Now that we got all of the companies that we want that meet the criteria that we want. We got the contacts that meet the criteria that we want. We have the right titles in the right locations or not. Now we're going to clean the data. And the cleaning process is very simple. It all starts with a DNC check. And DNC goes for do not contact list. And it's pretty much a list of companies that you already work with, your clients. It would be a list of people that have unsubscribed from previous campaigns. It would be a list of people that have just replied to your other campaigns and that are in active appointment setting. That would be your do not contact list. And I highly recommend that you check your new lead list against it before you upload it to the sending tool or before you even do overall outreach to them. Now, if you want a video on how to best check against the DNC list, you can always let me know in the comments below, and I'd be happy to show you our VLOOKUP system and Google Sheets to cross-check lists against each other. Now, once you've done the DNC check, it's time for us to talk about qualifications. You can have, and this is optional, a last run-through, have a VA or have a validation automation. Go through every single one of the websites and the people that are inside the list and just make sure they meet the criteria that you want once and for all. For example, let's say you got an e-commerce list, you got it out of store leads, you enriched it with Apollo, and now you want to confirm that you're actually getting companies that sell, let's say, swimwear. Now, how would you go about it? You can have a VA open each website and confirm, or you can have an automation that extracts the HTML of each and every single one of those websites and search for the keyword swimwear. That would be a possibility as well. And this is optional if you want like full-on qualification, because all of the tools I mentioned so far are going to have a few blind spots where a few of the tools, a few of the companies are going to just fall through the cracks, and you're going to have a few unqualified companies in your list. So it's up to you if you want to have a last piece of qualification. If you're starting out, you don't need to. If you are running things at a very high scale, you also wouldn't need to. You just ignore those companies if ever they fall in your list, right? And if ever they respond on a campaign, they usually don't. So it's fine. And it's usually like a very low amount of them that don't meet your criteria. Cool. Next part of cleaning the data would be cleaning merge fields. Merge fields are pieces of the list that we import inside our script, our Codimo script. So for example, if I'm sending a Codimo script that would sound like, hey Felipe, I came across your 5 meetings and I saw that you are the CEO at the company. That would be a script that is using information from the lead list in an automatic way, right? So let's say I'm using SmartLead, Instantly, or QuickMail to launch this list and this campaign. I can just pull in like dynamically from every single lead inside the lead list this information, but I want to make sure it's formatted right. So this is the fourth stage, which is the cleaning, is making sure the data there that we're plugging into the scripts is actually good. For example, first names should only have the first letter capitalized. It should only have the first name. It should not have the last name included. Company names, they should not have suffixes like LLC, CO, INC, whatever. It should also not have anything that's like complementary to the name. So if it was Nike, it should never be Nike Sports, just Nike. So formatting the company names properly. Position titles, you want to make sure they are written in a way that you would come across as casual in an email. It's very unlikely you would reach out to someone and say, hey, I saw that you're the chief executive officer at company name. You wouldn't say that. You would say, I saw that you're the CEO of company name. And that is something that you want to replicate when you're cleaning your list, is making sure that the position titles are written or spelled in the right way. That will come across casual in our Codimo script and not give away that you have an automation. And that is it. Those are the 4 stages of lead generation. I do have a bonus that I want to keep here for the end, which is automating the entire thing. Let's say you already passed this entire process and you already know how lead generation works, and all that you want is to get a lot more leads, and you don't want to be involved in this process and you don't want VAs. What you could be doing is automating the entire thing. How would you do so? Number 1, you learn about API calls. So you can go to a site, let's say Apollo, go to their API documentation and understand how it works. I'll give you a very brief on how this works. So in here we have Apollo's API documentation. Pretty much the way this works, just so you have an idea, is you're going to find, as you scroll down here, all of the API endpoints that you can hit, right? So let's say one that we use quite often is the people enrichment or the people API. And pretty much what we do is we send a request to an automation tool to this link, and we give it information. So let's say our API key, which is the key that makes the thing work and take our credits from our account. We give it like, say, the titles that we want. and we give the organization domains that we want and whatnot. We give all of that through an automation. It pulls from a Google Sheet, runs it through the automation, and then gets back all of the results. But this is the basics. You just have an API endpoint, you have the information, you send it, and then you're able to get in return all of the data that you wanted. And as you can already have imagined, you can pretty much automate everything from there. You just run everything from automation. Just to show you what it looks like, it's usually going to look something like the following. So pretty much what you would have is something that looks like this. You would have an automation. This is N8N. This is one of the tools that we use. And inside it, if you click, you'd be pulling from that URL that I showed you. So you just take the URL, you give it the parameters, right? So every single one of the parameters that you want to be running through, and you give it all of the information that is required, such as this information right here, like the organization domains. You give it like the person titles and whatever not. And from here, the automation is going to take all of the input data from your spreadsheet and output all of the information from Apollo. So this is how you could go ahead and pretty much automate your entire lead generation. What should you automate? Everything. You can literally find companies from automation. You can get contacts from automation. You can validate contacts from automation, and you can clean the data. If you want a video that talks specifically about how to automate this entire thing, let me know in the comments. I'll be happy to record one. And as a last thing that I want to share in this video is the tools that we use for these automations. And we recommend Make, we recommend N8N, and we recommend Parabola. Any of these three tools is fantastic for just automating your entire lead generation. That is all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.